Hello everybody and welcome to Talking Sports. This Wednesday, of course, it's a potentially season-defining, a potential title-deciding Premier League fixture between Manchester City and Arsenal. Now, as things stand, Arsenal sit 5 points ahead of the citizens in the Premier League table, although Pep Guardiola's men have played 2 fewer games. Ahead of this gigantic fixture, I wanted to have a quick look at some of the stats and also some of the remaining fixtures in the title race, because obviously with so much on the line on Wednesday night, with the title potentially on the line on Wednesday night, it's important to have that broader prospect and have a look at what are the remaining games, what is left on the fixture sheet for both these clubs heading into these final weeks of the campaign. Let's jump into the stats then. Arsenal have drawn their last 3 outings now in the Premier League. They were held by Liverpool, of course, and they were held by West Ham, both those games 2-2. And then last Friday, they were held by Southampton in an extraordinary fixture, which ended up finishing 3-3. I mean, Arsenal were 3-1 down heading into the final minutes of the game, but they managed to claw their way back and somehow rescue a draw, somehow rescue a 3-3 draw. But here's the thing about Arsenal. Defensively speaking, this is becoming a real concern because they've conceded 16 goals now from their last 10 Premier League games. And you look at the 10 games before that in the Premier League, they only conceded 10. So clearly there are some defensive vulnerabilities as we head into these final few weeks of the season. And I'll tell you what, you certainly don't want to have any defensive vulnerabilities when you're heading over to the Etihad Stadium, because let's face it, Manchester City, who have scored 31 goals now from their last 8 games. I mean, they take no liberties. They, especially at the Etihad, you have to be on your best behaviour defensively, and Arsenal are just a step behind, which could prove crucial when it comes to Wednesday's encounter. Now, here's the thing. Arsenal, you may think that yes, they've drawn their last 3 games. They have dropped 6 points over the course of those games. However, they've still picked up 24 points from the last 30 on the lines, which is from the last 10 Premier League games. That's 7 wins and 3 draws from their last 10 games. That's not a bad run at all. But the trouble is, when you're taking on a team like Manchester City for the title, if you're not perfect, you have a small chance of defeating, well, let's face it, what is at the moment perfection from Manchester City. Pep Guardiola's men, they've won 11 from their last 12 games across all competitions, and they could have won 12 from 12. That one draw came against Bayern Munich away at the Allianz, where the Champions League tie was already signed, sealed, and delivered following a dominant first leg. So, if they would have wanted to pick up a victory over Bayern, I'm sure they could have found a way past the German outfit. Nevertheless, Manchester City, they've kept 7 clean sheets from 11 games, and when it comes to their home form, they won 12 of their last 13 at the Etihad across all competitions, and during that time, they've scored 44 goals and only conceded 8. So that certainly doesn't spell much good news for Arsenal as we look ahead to that head-to-head encounter on Wednesday night. Looking at the run-in though, it's Arsenal who have 6 games remaining, while Manchester City still have 8 games to go. So you feel like it's City advantage there as well. Arsenal's last 6 games, let's go through them at this moment, because it's not an easy run-in at all. They begin obviously against Manchester City on Wednesday. They've lost their last 7 meetings against the citizens, and they will have to break that run if they are to stand the chance of winning the Premier League crown. Let's be brutally honest here. After that, they play Chelsea at home. Chelsea in poor form. Could Mauricio Pochettino be in charge of the Blues by the time this fixture is played? We'll see. But as things stand, Chelsea in very, very poor form. I don't believe that Frank Lampard is still yet to win a game since he's taken over at Stamford Bridge. Is looking very, very blue on that side of London. So Arsenal will certainly fancy their chances in that London derby. Then they travel away to Newcastle, and my word, what a tough fixture that's going to be for Arsenal. Only Liverpool have won at St James's Park this season. That's it, only Liverpool. So Arsenal will have to produce something very special there if they are to win. Obviously, we all saw what happened to Tottenham when they went to St James's Park last weekend. Now, Brighton will follow that game. Arsenal will travel to Brighton. They've only picked up 1 win from their last 3 games against the Seagulls. And let's not forget, Brighton have only lost 3 games since the turn of the year. So in 2023, they've played 18 games and they've only suffered 3 defeats. A very strong run that Brighton have got so far. We'll see whether they can maintain that before that game with Arsenal. But certainly a very, very tough game for the Gunners as they take on a Seagulls side, which is, looking up in the table, and they're eyeing and targeting a place in Europe. Next, after that, is a trip to Nottingham Forest before finishing the season at home at the Emirates against Wolverhampton. They've picked up 4 wins from 9 meetings against Wolves, which is a decent run, but, Wolves have improved in recent months, and you know what? It's, again, Wolves could potentially be involved in a race at the bottom. We'll see how things shape up towards the end of the season, but Wolves expect them to give a good account of themselves away at the Emirates. When it comes to Manchester City, though, as we mentioned before, 8 games in the Premier League still to go. First off on the list, they've got Brighton away, which they were supposed to play them last weekend. This fixture is yet to be rearranged, yet to have a proper date on it. However, they've won their last 11 against 12 against Brighton. Now, I know we've spoken about Brighton just moments ago. They're in good form. But considering that form, 11 wins against 12, 11 wins from 12 against Brighton, that's a pretty solid run of results that Manchester City have under their belt against the Seagulls. We've got that game against Arsenal coming up, of course, on Wednesday. The Gunners have only won one of their last 12 trips to the Etihad, so Manchester City will certainly fancy their chances there. Then it's Fulham away. They've beat Fulham 10 of the last 10 outings. Not much more to say than that. West Ham at home after that. Man City have won 6 of their last 8 Premier League games against the Hammers. Then it's a game at home against Leeds United. Leeds have conceded 18 goals from their last 5 games, and Manchester City have won their last 3 games against the Whites, and they've scored 14 goals in the process, so that's certainly not good news for Leeds fans. Then Manchester City play Everton away from home. Everton could be a bit desperate by that time. We'll see how the relegation battle pans out, but City have won 9 from their last 10 against the Toffees. Then it's a home game against Chelsea. They've won 5 from 5 against the Blues. And as we said before, who knows what's going to be happening on Stamford Bridge? Who's going to be in charge when that game comes around? But certainly Chelsea are looking very, very poor. And Manchester City will be expected to do a job on them by the time this fixture comes around. And finally, Manchester City will travel to Brentford on the final day of the season. Hard to say where Brentford will be at that stage. But as things stand, they've won 1 from their last 5 at home, Brentford. So again, Manchester City will fancy their chances. Should the title race come down to that, Manchester City will obviously fancy their chances in that game. Here's the thing, though. You look at the Arsenal's remaining fixtures, Manchester City's remaining fixtures, and you may think, Manchester City's on paper look far easier. These are teams that they've been in the past consecutively, and they should be able to get the job done. However, let's not forget, Manchester City still have the small matter of the Champions League semi-finals against Real Madrid in between all those fixtures. They still have a FA Cup final to think about, and who knows, they might have a Champions League final to think about. So a lot still to happen. You never know with injuries. You never know what could transpire over these final weeks of the season. But one thing's for sure, Wednesday's encounter between Arsenal and Manchester City will give us a pretty good indicator with regards to where the Premier League title will be heading. And I, for one, can't wait to see the action unfold on Wednesday night.